Leaders' questions, and I call on Deputy Micheál Martin.
Thank you, Cian Corley. Taoiseach, upskilling our population and our workforces stated as government policy, and I think it's a great pity that the policy that aspiration is not matched by policy decisions by ministers. Now, you frequently mention PayPal in here in the House and its announcement of 1,000 jobs as being great news for the people of the North East, and indeed it is, and it's very welcome. But as you can see, the Chief Executive Officer has made a strong statement yesterday saying that she finds it extremely difficult to find local people with necessary language skills and language base to fill the jobs. And there are reports today that the company have to recruit more than 500 workers with language skills from overseas. And the CEO said in a speech yesterday to the Louth Economic Forum, she continues to promote Ireland as a location for foreign direct investment, but it will have to address the language problem. Now, it seems to me, and I've looked hard, Taoiseach, that the only response that this government has taken to the language agenda in our schools is to actually scrap the one innovative modern language primary initiative that was introduced back in 1999, where we now have over 550 schools teaching 4 modern languages at primary school level. And for some unknown reason and with no rationale, Minister Rory Quinn decided to scrap that programme. It only cost £2 million a year. And that flies exactly in the face of what the Chief Executive Officer of PayPal is saying. And it really goes to the heart of a government that exercises itself more on spin than on substance. And that many of its decisions actually fly totally in the face of any logic, any rationale, and particularly in the context of this issue. It's interesting that across the water, our competitors, the United Kingdom, for example, have decided to launch a new curriculum in their primary schools to make languages compulsory from 7. The British Labour Party had actually got rid of their compulsory programme for under 14-year-olds, and the result was a 32% reduction in children who took languages in secondary school. Taoiseach, I want to ask you basically, do you have a plan to address the different language requirements of foreign direct investors that they need, and indeed for indigenous companies who export overseas? And will the government reverse the decision to scrap the modern language initiative?
Thank you, Deputy.
No, we won't reverse that decision. We'll take a different course. Many schools are still operating with alternative schemes to that pilot programme that you mentioned. It's a fact that the Irish language is compulsory in this country. It's also a fact that our students go to our own schools and learn the language, or go through the language for up to 14 years and still can't speak it fluently. It's a fact of life that the Chief Executive of the PayPal company made the point to me, and that 150 more people could be employed if they could have quality German speakers. And I don't mean just technical German, I mean fluency in the language. My view, Deputy Martin, is that we should start this process much earlier. Our children are no less intelligent than ever they were. The surveys that I carried out myself, I remember many years ago in the Department of Education, show that the Irish Celtic route is actually more favourable to learning languages than many others. And that's why I suppose many students come here to learn English, for the quality of the spoken language by our young people in particular. But I think we actually need to start a process at a much lower level, at junior certificate level, and before that, where languages are picked up by children in primary school without any great difficulty. It is the teaching methods that are critical here, as you well know as a former Moonshow yourself, and the availability and the opportunity to learn modern languages now is so easy in so many ways with the facilities. But look at ourselves, what we've done after 70 years, where the vast majority of young people leaving the secondary school system are still not conversant in the language of their native country. So when you speak about compulsion and the Labour Party in England, that's a matter for them. We've got a compulsory language here, and it has not delivered in the context of fluency. I share the view of the Chief Executive that we could do so much more in terms of modern languages. We are in the top 20 globally in terms of competitiveness. We are in the top 3 in terms of availability and flexibility of workforce. We are in the top 3 in terms of productivity and output, in terms of our workers. Language is very specialist. And for that particular company, when they deal in a global sense with different dialects, they need fluency. and that's an issue that we should be able as a people to address and that government will address. I'd like to think that when multinationals and foreign direct investment make their decision to site here, they do so for a package of issues, be it tax or technology or track record or talent. And in that talent, there is always an issue for language fluency. Down in your own county in Cork there recently, speaking to a number of multinationals where the sections deal with different languages. Some of them are international, some are Irish. In fact, speaking to somebody the other day where the Japanese come here, in one firm they've got a Donegal native actually, who speaks absolutely fluent Japanese and has been doing so for very many years. There's no restriction upon us, Deputy Martin, in having the competence to learn languages fluently. It's, in my view, it's a combination of teaching method and the capacity to teach it properly that makes our young people aware of the opportunities that come from being able to speak language with a fluency, which business requires these days.
Thank you. Deputy Martin.
There are times when I find the Taoiseach's replies to questions both incredible and baffling. I know there's no restriction on the capacity of a Donegal person to learn any language. I've known that for a long, long time. But seriously, Taoiseach, you said we must go down lower and start learning languages lower. That's the point of my question. There is a programme called the Modern Languages Primary Initiative. Was exactly.
It's a problem.
550 schools, very good cost value for money in terms of 2 million was the annual cost. Hundreds of teachers involved across the country, very efficiently introduced into primary schools in terms of complementing the existing curriculum. German was one of those languages, Taoiseach, and you've scrapped it for the sake of making a saving of 2 million. But the signal that sends out in terms of a government addressing a core competitiveness issue, a core skills issue, is very clear. You don't know what you're doing. And there are no alternative schemes. You said at the beginning of your reply that they're doing other schemes. They are not doing other schemes, Taoiseach. They're not doing other schemes.
Thank you. Could I have your
there is
question?
no other scheme now in place at primary level in terms of modern languages that's sponsored and supported by the state. And I would put it to you, Taoiseach, you do not have a strategy in terms of the language issue or the language problem as the CEO of PayPal identify it. And would you accept that this is a further example of really spin coming before substance and the policy actually being completely different?
Thank you.
What you want to do is restore a pilot programme that you introduced yourself when you were Minister for Education.
No, I
respected that for what it was worth.
Yeah, and it was a success. The evaluation was positive.
Many schools teach a second and third language, and teachers are committed to doing that. I'm saying to you that when you look at what we have done ourselves as a country in the context of teaching our own language, it leaves an awful lot to be desired. I appreciate the value of young children learning a second and third language. Many of them do. Many of them do outside school hours as they do in other subjects now. But the point is, you're asking me to restore the pilot programme which was introduced many years ago, which was of benefit, but which is no longer, which was of benefit, but which in my view does not meet the needs of where we're headed for the future. And the Minister for Education is reflecting on this because the matter was raised here at question time previously. Modern languages are absolutely critical for the economic development of the country. We signed strategic partnerships with China. I see some schools starting to learn Mandarin, starting to learn Portuguese, Russian, and indeed some of the Middle Eastern languages because of the explosion in economic development that will inevitably follow in the years ahead. So your question is, are we restoring the pilot programme that was abolished? The answer is no. Minister for Education is reflecting on the best opportunities for the teaching of language from here on, particularly a range of modern languages that are going to be a benefit to us as an economy.
Thank you. Deputy Jerry Adams. Leaders' questions and